I'm Susan Lopez, tactical dietitian, and I would first like to thank the amazing team over at Modern Athlete Strength for allowing me to help them in supporting Project Resilience. Today, I want to do my part to share a little bit about mental health and how your nutrition can play a vital and proactive role. After we've learned a little something about this topic at the end, I am going to walk you through some nutrition programming to go along with your 4-week program. And you are going to receive a special offer to help you get your personalized nutrition programming set up. So stick around until the end and let's get started. There is no denying that in the US, we are dealing with a mental health crisis. And among those who work in the most selfless jobs, these are the individuals that suffer the greatest compared to their civilian counterparts. Tactical athletes experience depression at twice the rates of civilians. In 2021, rates of depression in active duty military members and veterans was reported to be as high as 23% and 20%, respectively, almost 1 in 4. In 2011, the rates of depression in firefighters were almost just as high at 22%. And while we have conversations about how to battle depression once it's diagnosed through pharmacological methods, treatment programs, peer groups, and whatnot, the role of nutrition is underemphasized often in the mainstream. But the role of nutrition is so important to mental health that there is actually an entire field of psychiatry known as nutritional psychiatry that is actually dedicated to the treatment of mental health conditions with a large emphasis on how nutrition can be vital to that treatment. Many studies have shown that diet quality can, in many cases, affect or even reduce the onset of depressive symptoms. In fact, the study that I've quoted here, there is a 23% lower chance of depression when following a Mediterranean or pro-vegetarian diet. But you shouldn't cut out the meat just yet. Lower meat consumption has also been found to be related to increased risk of depression in some studies. So what does this mean? Well, there are a lot of nutrition specific factors that can play a role in the development or treatment of depressive symptoms. So we're going to talk about the factors that can contribute, what effects those factors can have, and what steps we can take in the prevention and nutritional treatment of some of those symptoms. Just to start off with, these factors, the first one we're going to talk about is energy availability. So energy availability is the amount of energy left over for biological health once you have accounted for physical activity. When we talk about energy in the body, we are usually talking about calories. And we have this linear idea of how calories work in the body. We have this idea that the calories in our body used each day, they work like the fuel tank on your car, that you can somehow fill the tank and it drains in a predictable way throughout the day very steadily. But the metabolism is very dynamic, and the amount of calories that we are burning at any one given time throughout the day can change drastically. Even as I'm sitting here, as I continue to stay seated, I'm not really doing a lot of movement other than with my hands. My metabolic rate may drop the longer I sit here, and I may not be burning as much fuel, and my body will want to start to conserve energy because the body is a very efficient machine. So if I'm not burning a lot of energy through movement, if I'm not being very physically active and I'm in this rested position, the body is going to become more fuel efficient, and it's going to naturally kind of get into that idle mode. But if I were to get up and say, go for a run, my metabolism or my metabolic rate is going to increase at that time, because any energy or calories that I have available to be used need to be prioritized for that higher amount of physical activity. And the body doesn't really know, am I running for fun or am I running because I'm running for my life? So all it knows is that energy that's available, it needs to be pushed in the direction that's going to help me survive. So when that happens, less calories are going to be available for my biological functions, some of them. Now, of course, the main ones, my brain working, my heart beating, my lungs working, are all going to continue to work. But there are other functions that are going to be shut down during that time or diminished when I'm doing sort of that high physical activity, when there's physical stress occurring in my body, right? So my metabolism will respond appropriately to whatever my physical activity levels are. And then energy availability is in equilibrium when I have consumed the same amount of calories that I have burned throughout the day through physical activity. And I also have enough to support my metabolism and biological health. And we're going to talk about in a minute how that equilibrium, when it's not appropriate, is going to be a factor in depressive symptoms. So micronutrients. So these are the vitamins and minerals that your body needs, right? Magnesium, selenium, zinc, B vitamins, vitamin D. Many of these are important to producing many of the chemicals that play a role in cognitive health. And of course, in other health factors as well. But specifically here, we're talking about mental health, right? In addition to overall energy availability, taking in adequate amounts of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats will be necessary to provide the substrates or the building material that will be used to produce different hormones and neurotransmitters. Okay. Food insecurity. This is one that maybe we haven't thought of as it relates to nutrition and mental health, especially for those of us who have never maybe really experienced food insecurity. So, food insecurity is essentially when there are times, either long periods of times or even short times, where an individual may reduce their intake of food or their eating patterns are disrupted due to inadequate resources for food. And that could be because of financial reasons. It could be because they live in a food desert. A food desert essentially is where the quality of food in the surrounding area that's accessible by someone maybe on foot is not adequate, where you maybe have a lot of convenience food options, but you don't have a lot of opportunities to obtain fruits, vegetables, whole grains, very fresh foods. Believe it or not, these food deserts still exist in the US. So when we're dealing with food insecurity, this can actually contribute to all of the factors that we have listed above. Food insecure homes or households are associated with higher healthcare costs, higher risk of chronic disease. And then, of course, this is also going to include increased risk of depression, anxiety, sleep disorders, and higher mortality. And we could link this back to poor diet quality and then a lot of these micronutrient deficiencies that we're dealing with as well. Now, the link between the gut and the brain is significant. In fact, the gut is often referred to as the second brain of the body due to its control over many bodily functions, including hormone production, the production of neurotransmitters. The gut also contains about 70% of the immune system. Therefore, when we experience things like gut dysbiosis, or the bacterial balance in your gut is misaligned, or symptoms related to intestinal permeability, sometimes known as leaky gut, this can create issues with the entire body, including increasing risk or exacerbating symptoms associated with depression, mood, and anxiety. Now, understanding how nutrition plays a role in our mental health is important. The effects of these factors can be far reaching in many aspects of metabolism, not just mental health. Supporting a healthy metabolism and brain begins with ensuring that energy is available to ensure that the body can perform its basic physiological functions. When we get into a state of chronic low energy availability, right? Where the body does not have enough calories or energy to support physical activity and biological health, the body will actually prioritize the small amount of energy we have for survival. So as a result, many of the body's systems can suffer because we just don't have the fuel necessary to keep the body healthy. Sex hormone production is often one of the first systems that will become dysregulated. The body cares mainly about two things: surviving and procreation. And when those two things are on the table and one of them has to be sacrificed, immediately what you're going to start to see is that your sex hormone production is going to be dysregulated. So this can show up as low testosterone levels, decreased active thyroid hormone production, irregular menstrual cycles. Each of these, which can lead to its own set of issues with anxiety, mood, and depression. Production of neurotransmitters such as serotonin, our feel-good neurotransmitter, will decrease as a result of low energy availability. Also, if carbohydrates as a substrate or a building block are not available for the body to produce adequate amounts of serotonin, then serotonin levels will be reduced. And this results in a reduction of melatonin. Melatonin production issues can lead to sleep regulation issues, since melatonin is your sleep neurotransmitter. It helps you to fall asleep. Many individuals who suffer from depressive issues or symptoms will also deal with issues related to sleep onset latency or difficulty falling asleep and insomnia, which can also, again, be exacerbated by low energy availability. So as the body fights for survival and as depressive symptoms persist, weight gain is a common consequence, either due to self-imposed actions such as using food and or alcohol to cope with stress and anxiety, depression. You can experience inflammation throughout the gut due to gut permeability, or again, sort of that imbalance of the gut microbiome. Dysregulated biochemical levels, blood sugar levels, lipids, insulin. And this can oftentimes be related to poor diet quality or decreased physical activity in conjunction with poor nutrition, and subsequent loss of high quality lean tissue can also affect energy metabolism. And as I previously mentioned, systemic inflammation related to the above effects can create this cycle that is difficult to break out of, or at times even know, where should you start, right? And it should also be noted that while we are specifically talking about the impacts of nutrition and mental health status related to symptoms such as depression and anxiety, that many of the issues we have discussed in interventions that we are talking about can be applied in creating a healthy metabolism in those individuals who without depressive symptoms. So many folks that I work with, many people that I've met, a lot of times they work and they struggle with things like weight cycling, lack of quote unquote motivation, fatigue, chronic injuries, illness, many of these things, which can also be caused by the same factors. So when attempting to either mitigate depressive symptoms or be proactive in prevention, there's a few basic principles that can be applied. Now look, this information isn't going to be mind blowing, right? So when we talk about nutrition and the interventions that are needed to, fight a lot of these chronic diseases and symptoms that we're dealing with, many of these things you've heard before. But the question really is whether or not we are actually doing these things. Intentionality is a word that I use frequently. When dealing with depression and anxiety, it can be difficult to perform even the simplest actions of daily living, but finding support, and by using one or some of the tools here, the hope is that we can support the body's resiliency and ability to heal. when struggling with low energy availability due to lack of appetite or gut related discomfort, attempting to get well balanced meals in throughout the day can go a long way. That's pretty standard information. But again, is that something that you're doing intentionally? One of the things that I deal with some of my athletes is finding those regular meal patterns that they can follow. Skipping meals throughout the day is not a healthy meal pattern. You know, only eating twice a day, not eating during the day at all, and then binging at night. Maybe you're following a very low calorie diet or some other type of trendy diet during the week. And then on the weekends, you find yourself binging, or maybe you're saving calories so that you can drink later in the evening, right? All of these things create sort of these disordered eating patterns and do not support mental health or physical health at all. So we want to find regular times to eat even small meals throughout the day. Knowing approximately how much you need to support good metabolic health or focusing on getting in adequate protein is a good place to start. And as we finish this little chat today, what I'm going to be doing is giving you information on how you can access a lot of the tools, or all of the tools really, in the Tactical Nutrition and Performance database. So these tools in here, you can start using these to figure out what your individual calorie and macro needs might need to be. There's recipes in there, there's meal plan templates, and then a lot of information on how to start structuring your nutrition programming for yourself as an individual, whatever your goal might be. So stick around till the end and you will get that information on how to access that. Now, nutrient-dense foods, these are foods that will provide you with many of the micronutrients that you need to produce energy, that you need to produce hormones, neurotransmitters, manage blood sugar, weight. This is typically where you're going to find your high fiber foods. These are often going to come in the form of foods that are colorful. So yes, your fruits and vegetables, but also certain whole grains. And the recipes in the Tactical Nutrition and Performance database can help you get that variety with too much mental effort on your part. If you're dealing with, just some fatigue, some decision decision paralysis, right? Then having some of those tools available might be helpful. Now, appetite is often an overlooked indicator of metabolic health. Something that I always ask individuals that I'm working with is how their appetite is in the morning when they wake up, how it changes throughout the day, and how frequently they're getting hungry throughout the day. Encouraging adequate food intake by stimulating the digestive tract through feeding, and then by getting some form of physical activity, can assist with getting in nutrients throughout the day. And here, when we're talking about physical activity, we're not necessarily just talking about gym time or high intensity training, right? We're talking about even just the simple act of walking, which can help to stimulate digestion and with nutrient delivery as well. In instances where nutrition is suboptimal, either self-imposed or accidental, you're in a calorie deficit, lack of nutritious foods, so food insecurity might be an issue, right? Stress, multivitamin supplements can provide some benefit if you're able to get them. And in some studies, it's also been shown that if you take a multivitamin, your risk of mortality actually decreases. So again, just make sure that you find one that's safe, that's third-party tested. Fish oil has also been shown to be effective at addressing moods and anxiety-related symptoms. Vitamin B12 for energy production, magnesium for a whole host of things that happen throughout the body, but especially for sleep, L-theanine for sleep, GABA, 5-HTP or tryptophan for relaxation and sleep. Just whatever you're going to utilize to help support brain health, cognitive health, mental health, make sure that you are consulting your healthcare provider before starting any supplement routine, particularly to ensure that you are not none of those are contraindicated with any of your current prescription medications or other pharmacologicals that you might be taking. Effective treatment of depression, anxiety does not always just come in the form of a single intervention. Nutrition is not going to be a fix-all for depressive symptoms. Often we need to work with a host of teams to create good routines, supports, accountability, and pharmacological intervention can be important as well. So what we're going to do now is, if you take a look in the notes below, you will see a link for a 7-day free trial of the Tactical Nutrition and Performance Database. So this is where you're going to find the information that you need to help set up your individualized nutrition programming. There's going to be calorie and macro calculators in there. There's an option for training logs. You're going to have recipes, meal plan templates, lots of webinars in there around nutrition, nutritional periodization, goal setting, and you're also going to have the option to take a look at some different supplements with a special discount from our team, and also look at different biofeedback testing measurements, specifically things like cortisol, magnesium, using very simple tools that you can keep in your home. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to walk you through where you can find these tools. So once you've activated your 7-day free trial, you're just going to head over to tacticaldietitian.com, and inside of your library, you will see the Tactical Nutrition and Performance Database. Definitely go through as many of the modules that you can. However, if you go into the Performance Nutrition 101 section, you will find the Nutrition for Strength template and meal planner. Once you've opened this, there will be a video for you to watch on how to appropriately use that planner, and then you'll be able to download the Excel sheet over here on the right. Once you've got that Excel sheet open, this is what it looks like. On the first tab where it says start here, this is where you want to put in all your information, and you'll see the different steps here. Age, sex, height, weight. You're going to denote your activity level here, low, moderate, and high. How many meals per day that you typically eat or that you would like to break your nutrition down into. And then down here, you'll see recommendations for how to manage your carbohydrates, your protein, and your fat intake. Typically, with most people, we can start with around a 40-30-30 breakdown, and this is going to be adequate for most of us. Okay, now as your physical activity demands, as your body fat demands, based on what your goal is, you can change this around a little bit. And again, if you go in those modules on the Tactical Nutrition and Performance Database, there is definitely going to be information in there to teach you how to manage those percentages based on what your goal is. This particular lesson right here, fueling ratios, is great for that. So once you've got your information filled in here on the first sheet, it will automatically populate your recommended calorie intake, macronutrient intake. It will also give you the ranges of your macronutrients based on different scientific formulas. And then based on how many meals per day, it's going to show you how many grams per meal approximately you should be getting. And that is going to then be translated into weight for each meal that you prepare. Now, remember, these weighted amounts over here are just estimates. Depending on the type of food you choose, the actual amount that you need to hit this many grams of nutrients may be slightly different. So just keep in mind that everything on this template is really an estimation. Now, what you can do is, if you would like, you can utilize these recipes to determine what your meal plan is going to look like. And there are also different templates with different calorie amounts in here that you can use as samples. So there's a lot of done for you stuff in here. If you would like to do a more customized option, then you'll be able to utilize this meal planner back here. Now, as you choose foods from the list and you input your serving size here, you will see that the approximated calories and macronutrient breakdown will auto-populate here, and then you'll see your percentages being broken down here. Now, the nice thing about this is this food list back here, although it has quite a bit in it already, is easily customizable. So if you have very specific recipes or food that you like to utilize, you can actually add them in here and they will show up in your drop-down boxes inside the meal planner, which is really nice. So I'm going to go all the way to the bottom here. And there you can see what I just put in. It auto-populates in that box. And you can add different things in there endlessly. So that makes it really nice as well. So this is a really great tool to get started with. But the art of nutrition programming is something that you're only going to learn as you go through the different modules within the Tactical Nutrition and Performance database. So I'm happy to have brought this information to you here during this week 1, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week.